Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Eric. I'm one of your hosts for In the Reel. I'm here with Jen and Cheryl. Please introduce yourselves. I jumped in for you, but go ahead.
In case nobody catched it with Eric just saying it, this is Jen.
And this is Cheryl.
I am well beyond the level of intoxication, so I'm going to do my best at controlling this shit here and my volume and whatnot.
It's a rare night for Eric.
Very rare night. We watched episode 6 just moments ago to take notes, and I had a bottle of port wine. If you've never had port wine, let me tell you, that shit should be illegal. It is so strong, and I'm a lightweight anyway. So one glass toasts me on regular crap port wine, not a good plan.
Well, and let's just be clear, this wasn't like a regular bottle of wine. This was actually like a miniature bottle of wine.
Right, and it's port,
and
so
he's done.
It's a half really of a typical bottle, and it's like 7 bottles in one. It's unbelievable stuff. We'll put a plug in for New Mexico, St. Clair Winery and Bistro. Phenomenal place. That's where we buy most of our wine. They ship it. They're fantastic people. It's really good stuff. I don't care if it's white or red. They've got everything from sweets to dries. Wonderful people. So I hope they don't mind a little hashtag and a plug, because we love you people.
Also, what about the Silver Strike?
Silver Strike in Arizona. Let's not forget them.
Those
Absolutely.
are
Silver Strike in Tombstone. Thanks for pointing that out, Cheryl. Oh, that's the place that I would attribute to learning most about the wines that we know of now. I forget his name, but he was so patient and willing to work with us. We were in that store in Tombstone
2 hours
for 2 hours learning about wines.
And this guy was the guy that introduced Eric to red wines that he could actually handle, and gave him the step up that let him enjoy reds now, because he used to hate red wine.
And introduced you guys to the no tannin.
Yes.
The organic no tannin,
which we don't have up here.
In a funny story, he had told us that their fields, Silver Strike Winery from Arizona, and his store is in Tombstone off that main drag. And I believe you can email them or find them on Facebook. Silver Strike Winery.
They're on Facebook.
Yep. But he had told us their vineyards, when they go out to pick the grapes, their people need to go out with shotguns because they're so wildly grown that they shoot the fucking snakes out there.
Because they don't use any pesticides or anything.
Nothing.
It's completely organic. So
wild growth all the way.
Yeah.
Phenomenal wines there. I would attribute those a little bit higher, not to say that they are, just from our personal experience, higher than St. Clair, and they are a little bit more pricey. So I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it from that perspective too. But they're both great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, very good. You can actually taste the flavors of the wine without the tannin that we have so much here in Minnesota. The tannin is that thing that gets your jawbone going. You know.
So absolutely, and if and the price is good, so you don't have to. I'm sorry about my papers here. I'm switching back to episode 5, and the prices are good for their wines. I mean, they're I think we got a case from St. Clair for $7 a bottle of one of their table wines, up to I think $30 a bottle, and that's similar to Silver Strike. So that's pretty good pricing. Versus getting a French wine for $200, that's really going to taste about the same. I don't think we've ever bought in that, but that Napa Valley stuff that you got for $130.
Chateau Montelea, which I bought because of the movie, it was $100 for the wine.
What was the movie?
It was
Bottle Shock.
Chris Pine and Alan Rickman, who just recently passed away, who I love. Great movie, and I got the wine just from that, and I was like, "This is shit." It was
disappointing.
Shit.
For $100
for a bottle of wine that was just like, I can get this better from Tombstone or from New Mexico. Sorry. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. So, thank you to the people that have listened to our podcast. We've been watching the views, and we are thrilled to see people listening to our personal arguments on the Avery case. And our
I'm psyched.
Our personal perspective. Absolutely. It's great. We appreciate that. Definitely. We haven't had as many comments as views, but that's fine.
That's all right.
We encourage the comments, and
appreciate
we are
the views. Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. Yep.
We are now on to episode 5 and 6. If we can get to 6, again, we're going to try to keep this to an hour because we appreciate you listening.
We keep saying that, and it doesn't happen.
It
but
never
we're
happens.
trying.
We got so much shit to say.
Yeah.
But we know that you're taking time out of your day to listen to us, and we appreciate that. So we're really trying. So our format today is going to try to keep it to an hour and maybe hour 30 on episode 5 into 6, and then our humorous thing. We're going to continue on with the youcanbefunny.com funny excuses for being late. We're going to read a few more from that at the end of the show if we have time for that.
And please, if you have any comments at all, I mean, go ahead and post them. I mean, we would even be willing to do a show responding to that. You know, whether you're for or against whatever we're saying, it's always an interesting topic. So, and I think people need to keep talking about it because it's important.
Absolutely, I would agree. Anything to add, Cheryl?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So, episode 5, our last show that we did, I went off of my notes and Cheryl went off of hers. So, in my opinion, I think Jen will go off of your notes for episode 5, and then Cheryl and I will fill in wherever we're leading off of from there. If you're okay with that.
Okay. That's fine. Yep.
So we'll go with that.
So the first note that I actually mentioned in episode 5 was that the state moved to exclude the blood vial. They asked for a test done by the FBI. Originally, that it's a test. It's not used because it's not reliable. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, is that they were like, well, we know it's not a reliable test, but we're going to ask this test for the FBI because we want to make sure that, you know, whatever was in the blood tube wasn't in the blood. And it'll come later it comes down later. They reapproach that or whatever, but it's highly suspicious to me that they ask the FBI the state does ask the FBI for a test that doesn't really exist or has been thrown out before because it's not reliable.
Right.
Just to clarify what she's talking about, in that purple tube, there is an anticoagulant in that tube for the blood.
Right.
And the test that they were requesting, you can at that time, I don't know about nowadays, you know, because we're about 10 years past. At that time, they couldn't distinguish if that stuff was in the blood samples at all. It was inconclusive. I shouldn't say they couldn't tell. There was just nothing solid to be able to say, yeah, that stuff is in there from a blood tube. And so that's kind of the point that you were driving on for that.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I had, why would the state move to exclude the blood vial as evidence when any other civil case that this would have been blown out of proportion, and it probably would have been, inconsecutive evidence and probably thrown out. The case would have been thrown out, as tampered evidence.
If it was the state that was representing
a civil,
and they would be like, no, we can't do this because it's been tampered with.
Exactly, and the case would have been thrown out.
It's interesting that it was kept.
Right, and why was it not thrown out?
Right.
As inconclusive evidence or even a tampered case. Yeah.
Well, I think it was because they were going on, like, could the blood be taken from that vial, from the defense?
Right.
Could the blood be taken? And that's probably why it wasn't thrown out.
Okay.
Is because they needed it, and they wanted to prove that the anticoagulation wasn't in there, but there isn't a test right now that's available to do that.
Okay.
And honestly, jumping to the future, that's one thing that people are talking about. They're like, well, it may not have been available then, but
is it available now?
Right. That's the question: is do we have sensitive enough equipment and technology to sense that?
Right. And if not, well, then let's get on it.
Right. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Come on, science geeks around the world, do it.
Right. Yep. All right.
Good.
Next point.
Another one I wrote down was this one, that slimy Kratz dude that we keep talking about.
No, he's the prosecutor, right?
He's the prosecutor. Yep. The one thing that I wrote down that I just thought was hysterical is that when he used the term, this little girl, in his high-pitched, like Michael Jackson voice.
Right.
This little girl. He's like, sorry.
He's creepy enough.
He goes, sorry, young woman.
Yeah.
That was completely intentional.
Exactly.
Completely intentional to do that, to put that in the jury's heads.
Absolutely.
That motherfucker, I swear to God.
Well, like I was saying in the last podcast, he was almost like sweating and almost getting off on the fact that he kept saying, oh, Steven and, or Brendan, opened Stephen opens the door and Stephen's sweating and just kept saying it over and shirtless. And it's like, dude, are you getting off on this as you're explaining this to the media? Because that's kind of gross. And then, now putting in this young girl. She was at least
a little girl at first.
Like she was like,
I'm sorry, young woman.
Young woman.
Excuse me.
And she was at least, 22, 23.
I'm not actually sure.
I don't know.
I don't think
Teresa Halbach's age. But now that you mention that, though, I'm gonna start watching for his hands in the trials, see if he's like touching himself under the table,
off underneath of media conferences. Yeah, exactly.
Just a snake.
Slimy.
I think I referred to him as the cum bucket before, maybe somebody else, but that guy,
something about him. He's
a prosecuting attorney, and there's one thing to be a prosecuting attorney and really going after bad people. Mm-hmm. But there's something about that clown. There's something off about him. Snaky. I don't care for it. Very, very sneaky, undermining, really, in the law. Mm-hmm. At least I would attribute it to that. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan.
No, he just has the ick factor that if I met him in real life, I wouldn't want anything to do with him.
Yeah, Eric would definitely not shake his hands.
No, I would not shake his hands.
Just by the looks of him, you wouldn't shake his hands.
I don't think anybody knows the background story, but we'll just...
I wouldn't get close to that clown. There's
Eric
no way.
Doesn't shake hands with very many people.
No.
Cheryl's boss, one time we were there, and he went up to shake Eric's hand, and Eric threw his hands up in the air and just said, I'm good.
I'm good. I was horrified.
He just doesn't do it.
He's like, that is my boss.
And then he walks away and he goes, I don't know where that guy's hands have been.
Right.
Well, it's true. And granted, to just add to that little tidbit about me, there's some people I just give in when they approach and shake their hand, but that hand is not touching anything till I go wash it.
Right.
But that dude, your former boss there at that restaurant, he just creeped me out. I don't know what it is about that dude. I didn't want to touch him.
Okay.
And that'd, hack up that lung. And that dude,
Ken Kratz.
Ken Kratz, that fucking guy.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't think anybody. Even not having, OCD or anything, I don't think I would want to even shake his hand. Yeah.
And it's not just from watching this. It's like the first second I saw that guy and I heard his voice and I saw his movements and
characteristics.
Just bad.
Well, getting off topic, that guy even allegedly, let's be clear, sent some very inappropriate texts to some clients.
In episode 9 or 10.
Right. Yeah. So he's obviously some kind of fucking scumbag. Mm-hmm. So, and do people send inappropriate texts to people? Yeah, they do.
But not when they're your clients.
Right. When they're your client, you got to have some kind of level of professionalism. Right. Come on, man. And if you can't do that, even though you're in Wisconsin, I know you guys just are bent over backwards and strange. It's still,
oh my God.
You still need a level of professionalism, and this fucker just doesn't have it. I don't know. No loss for that guy if he fell off the planet. I'm sorry.
No.
Another thing I noticed that'll come up later, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, is that they said in this episode 5, that there was evidence that the bones were moved.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that later because it comes up again in episode 6.
More evidently is in
more prominently.
6. Prominently, yes, sorry.
And then Colburn, when he was on the stage, Andrew Colburn, when he was on the stand, not the stage, he's not in a show tune.
Right.
All right. They said you need to go to the Zipper property and you need to go to the Avery property. They need to be checked out because those are the last 2 places that she was going. He didn't even bother to go to the Zipper property, which was the last place she was going.
Okay.
She was scheduled to go there earlier in the day, but it worked out. She was running behind schedule, so there were some phone calls made and a rearrangement, so she stopped at the Avery property first.
Okay.
So really, she was headed over after she left the Avery property.
I missed that.
To the Zipper property.
Okay.
And it would be really interesting for me personally to know, where is the Zipper property located, and was it along the same road that Brendan, or not Brendan, what's his name?
Avery?
No, the creepy
Lang.
No, the other Dassey boy that's
suspicious.
Bobby Dassey and Scott Tudyk. Is that his name?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's along the same lines that they were going.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
For their hunting, you mean?
For their hunting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Which again comes up in episode 6.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it later.
I think we're jumping ahead. Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. a lot of my questions that, one of my questions that I pointed out here during episode 5 is that, where is this Gregory Allen? They've never questioned him. They've never suspected.
Okay.
So what? In
not on the first situation, though. Are you going back that far?
On episode 5.
Just on episode 5.
Just wondering,
Start of the trial.
Right. When they started the trial, they investigated mainly just the Avery people, the Avery family. and none of them really had past records, except for minor things.
Alan was in jail
at the time.
I think whenever they caught him, he was in jail since like the 90s, maybe late 80s, 90s.
Was he consistently in jail from 95? Because I think that's the last time we heard from him was in 95 when he admitted to the
was
past
he still
crime
in jail?
Right. We don't know that at this point. I don't think any more information's ever come up from that I recall.
That would
so
be a good
far,
thing to research.
Right, from just the series. Maybe he was. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Jen, perfect. Jen's the best researcher ever. So.
Well, she doesn't do anything all day. So.
Where Gregory is.
She's allowed to research stuff on her computer.
Right,
Whereas at work we are not. Yeah, I'm not, at least.
Well, I can cheat.
Well, yeah, Eric can watch YouTube videos of, surgery. I get slapped on the head if I, check in my Yahoo. So.
Well, it is Yahoo.
Yeah.
So another thing I wrote down was Link calls Calumet about a missing person to help. He's like, "Oh, I heard you guys have this missing person. I want to help out." Nobody had called him. He just voluntarily called them.
Right.
Said, I hear you guys have this missing person case. I want to help
now,
out.
who did that?
Link.
Lieutenant Link.
Yep.
Link.
Link.
Oh, that's the guy who was involved in the
basically
past.
everything.
Yes.
That's right.
He was involved with it in the past, and then I think he was a sheriff at the second case, and then he decides to take upon himself to take
to call out
control
Calumet,
of this case.
Right.
Yep.
And then at the same time, before anything was known about the whereabouts of Teresa, Detective Jacobs asked 30 minutes after the car was found if Stephen was already in custody. And we talked about that before.
Yep, 30 minutes. Do we have Stephen Avery in custody?
Right.
No, before the evidence was even found 3 days later.
And all of this was supposedly after Ken Kratz went on to tell the media that, the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department has bowed out due to the conflict of interest or whatever, but they're still fully involved.
Right. Oh, they stayed involved.
And I don't know if that's
time.
actually what happened or if that's just what I saw in the film, but it was that they said, no, we're bowing out of this. Calumet's going to take over or whatever, but then they were fully involved the entire time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And as we pointed out in our previous episode, almost all the evidence, like the key, was found by Manitowoc deputies, not by the department that was really supposed to be investigating and taking charge of that.
Yep.
But you pointed out Lang. Who volunteered. Link. Yeah,
Yep.
I think I put a G instead of a K, or my writing sucks, which it does.
His writing does suck.
But, and you did mention this, that he was involved with a lot of those other previous cases as it pertains to Avery. The previous case, at minimum, that he was falsely accused of.
Yeah.
So he comes up a lot, and just as you mentioned that, I wonder what kind of relations he has with Bobby Dassey.
Right.
Yeah.
Because later on we'll talk about speculation that I have with Bobby Dassey, but it comes into play, in my opinion, with my speculation with the situation with Teresa Halbach. And we'll get to that in episode 6.
I think that he has really strong ties to the previous 1985 case of, where...
Absolutely. He was the arresting officer, I believe, in that case.
Right. And,
Link,
of course,
Bobby.
Link was. And who was the lady sheriff, Dvorak. Sheriff Dvorak. Judy Dvorak, yeah. I believe that they have very strong ties with each other somehow. I'm sure that they, have swingers clubs with each other's, dates. I don't know. Whatever. But anyways, but I think
it's Wisconsin. It's pretty similar to Minnesota. I'm pretty sure it's common.
Right.
Well, let's not join at the hip with Wisconsin.
But I'm sure that they've stayed in ties with each other, and Lane Krasinski or whatever. All those people are just tied in with each other, and they've all
small town.
Yeah, kept each other's back, and don't want to make each other look like idiots or assholes. And if one of them gets exploited, then all of them are going to be exploited.
Yep. Well, just talking on the topic of Bobby, one of the things we saw in here is that there was a comment that Bobby said in court that his uncle Stephen said after they suspected him of killing Teresa. They said, he's like, yeah, well, do you want to help me hide the body? Well, and it turns out that Stephen actually said this to somebody else prior
not
to
Bobby.
not Bobby, prior to her even being known that she was missing, because he was just like joking around at a bar or whatever. It's like, yeah, they'll probably try to pin it on me. You want to help me, to get rid of a body. And that was actually in a police record.
And I think they had the phone record, the recording of that or something.
It wasn't a recording.
Wasn't it?
It was a police record.
Okay,
Because
I thought I
just
heard
said,
him
he's like,
say
yeah,
it.
he's like, he said it, but he was joking.
Right.
And then here's Bobby Dassey in court. Even though they have that record, in the property or whatever, they're allowing this to be said on the stand that it was
it
Bobby
or
Dassey.
Brendan?
Bobby
Okay.
that Steven supposedly said this to, which he wouldn't because Bobby doesn't. He hates Steven anyway.
Right, you can tell there's some
Oh,
kind of
God.
difference there.
Years, it looks like.
Yeah.
So it was clear that he never said it to Bobby, but Bobby was testifying
On the
that
stand.
he did say it
Right,
to him.
right, on the stand. And it was word for word.
Wow.
Right,
What an
right.
idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was no mistrial, and the judge didn't instruct the jury to disregard, which I thought was ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just misleading of some information that just is inaccurate.
Well, and another thing, speaking of the judge, is the judge rules that the defense can't point to any other suspects. What the fuck is that?
Why not? Exactly. Yeah. Why? Like you said, why were the Zipper family never
Right.
investigated?
But they can't even say, well, it could have been possible that it was this
No,
person. They
no.
cannot.
They just
were like basically put a gag order on them.
Right.
I don't understand how that's viable. I mean, how
Here,
can
catch this ball, but don't use your hands.
Don't
Yeah.
or gloves
Yeah.
Yeah.
or anything.
Exactly.
You got to catch it with your face somehow.
Yeah.
And if you drop it, you're done.
That's pretty much what. Honestly, I remember what you're talking about there. I didn't write a note about it, but it would seem that that's how the judge really presented the abilities of the defense to be able to defend. You can't do this, can't do this, can't do that. And it's like, well, that's
They were handicapped.
really 90% of the shit we have to work with to prove that this is inaccurate.
Right.
Oh, so we can't prove it's inaccurate.
Right.
What the fuck?
It's a golf handicap. Well, you're holding a 100-pound dumbbell with an ape running around your back, just crazy, throwing your hat in the air and everything and shitting on your head. That's pretty much what it was. I mean, it's impossible to manage
unreal.
that.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
I thought that would be much funnier. Apparently,
Yeah, it was funny.
Went a little crazy there.
Yeah.
That's my mind.
Monkey shitting on your
Monkey
face or
shitting
your
on
head.
your
That
head,
was good.
yeah.
I liked it.
So, and then the other thing is the suspicious brother and the boyfriend are back in the picture in episode 5 here.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, because you talked about
yeah.
Bobby Dassey, I do want to bring up something just to put in somebody in people's minds to understand. Bobby Dassey leaves he on the stand and through testimony or his report stated he left to go hunting at about 2:45. And he testified that he saw the victim at that time. We're going to learn in episode 6 that didn't really take place that way by other testimony.
Yeah.
But keep in mind the time, 2:45 is what he testified
Yep.
that he was leaving to go hunting.
Yep.
And he saw Teresa Halbach taking pictures of a van
And heading into Steven's trailer.
and heading, that's a very good point, and heading into Steven's trailer while he was leaving
Right.
And he woke up at 2:30 p.m.
to get ready to leave it and left at 2:45.
Loser.
Yeah.
2:30.
Jobless,
I'm gonna wake up.
punk.
2:30. I'm gonna go hunting.
But keep
And
that in mind.
Took a shower.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind.
Right,
Yep,
right. Took a shower.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell you washed in 3 minutes before you got dressed after you dried off to get in a car and leave.
Do you instantly just roll out of bed, waking up, and just stare out the window?
Right.
Just, what's going on outside? What the fuck?
Right. Right.
And then I'm gonna go take a shower.
Right.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
But he did testify 2:45.
Yes.
And we're going to learn later some other information happened. The only other note I had prior to where you're at was a point made by prosecution. I'm going to read my note here. I'm not sure if it makes a lot of sense. Incinerated a body in a bonfire, and all the remains are fragments and pieces of shin bone. And the question I had to that, because in the beginning of episode 5, some of that information came about, the trials started, and we talked about this several times. Can a bonfire get hot enough, long enough to cremate a human body?
And we're gonna come back to that too.
Right, because it comes up in episode 6
Yeah.
some more. So keep that question in mind, people. And I've said it 3 times, 4 times, 100. YouTube human cremation. You will be amazed what the hell that takes to burn up a body. In a bonfire, sorry, not going to happen.
No.
So yeah, I don't know if you got back points, but then we can keep going where Jen is at.
I think I'm good. Yeah, my notes don't make sense. So I wrote down some things that let's just move on.
Just again, they bring both the brother and the ex-boyfriend in. And they both were able to guess the password and get into the voicemail, and how people were getting messages prior to that there were the voice, I'm sorry, this voicemail is full, and they weren't able to leave messages.
Mm-hmm.
But during the time that the boyfriend and the brother were able to get on the phone, all of a sudden messages were suddenly deleted.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other messages left after the fact.
On top
of people reporting that they got that message.
Right. And top of the fact that I just realized a note that kind of relates to that is that when they asked the boyfriend, what time did he see her at? And he's like, I have absolutely no idea.
He couldn't even say if it was daylight.
That's what they said. They said morning, noon,
day,
night. He's like,
I don't know. I don't know.
And
was the fucking sun up?
Right.
Hello?
How would you not be able to have some kind of concept of time whatsoever? Yeah.
And what about the roommate not reporting her missing for 4 days?
3 days, some shit like that.
Yeah. Yep. Can't identify the time of day that he saw her on Sunday morning.
Right.
I don't know
whether the sun was up or not. Can you give me some kind of concept of
and
time?
the defense asked him, did the police ever ask you or Matt, what's your alibi? And he said no.
Right.
None at all.
They're just okay.
That's usually the first person you look at is the people that are closest to the victim.
And the family was not investigated.
Nope.
He was barely investigated.
Roommate wasn't investigated.
Right.
Nobody was investigated.
And all the things that he had said were, it's like, there's holes in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this not being further investigated with the ex-boyfriend, with the families, with the brothers, with the roommate, anything? They're just like, oh, okay, well, go ahead. You're dismissed.
And once they were convinced that she was missing, the ex-boyfriend somehow, even though the police made the Avery property off limits to the general public, even though he wasn't convicted with anything yet, how was the boyfriend and his search party allowed on the property?
And with cameras and all the stuff where you...
The one camera to the one person.
Pam Stern. Yep.
Out of all the people that were volunteers,
was given to that psycho religious Pam lady and
Pam
her daughter,
Stern,
who happened to find the car,
who offered to search the car yard.
Yep.
No one else. There was nobody else that he gave the camera to. Here, I don't know you. I just met you today. Here's my camera.
Right.
Have fun.
Right. I don't think I would.
I don't need it.
No.
I'm going to search in a totally different area where I know we're not going to find anything. So here's the camera.
Yeah.
What the
I've never
fuck
met
is
you
that?
before. Yeah.
Right.
Take my electronic device that I've a couple $100 worth.
Yeah.
And the whole trees being planted on the RAV4, that was just completely stupid. They were almost trying to set it up as to be like, hey, look at me. I'm the only car on the property that has tree branches and, wood pallets covering it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just...
And just a few hours before the car was found on November 5th, they called Earl, who was the only person on the property because he was running the salvage yard. Everybody else was at their cabin.
Earl the brother. Okay.
To get permission on the property, and he allowed it.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah.
But it's weird, right? They called just a couple of hours before the car was found to get permission, and we're allowed on the property. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
How would they know to ask? I mean, that's just kind of the whole theme.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems planted. So then that Pam Stern lady, who it was a really bad decision for her as an ex-boxer to turn into a football player before she changed sex. That woman, seriously, yeah, that's a bad transition.
She's a little butch.
Mm-hmm.
Caitlin better watch out. Or maybe that's Caitlin's match.
And then she's talking about how, they have this huge salvage yard to start, and most people, you get to the salvage yard, here's the door, you're going to start running up and down the car lines, right? She's just like, oh, there's a ridge up there. I'm going to go to the beeline straight to the fucking car. They asked her how many cars did she look at, and she said 3, and the third one was Teresa's.
Yeah.
Seems a little weird to me that you just walk all the way up on this ridge, which is way far from your starting point. And then it's like, oh, and then she's like, I was scared for my life. She's like, I was screaming for my daughter. If you're scared for your life, you're not going to be screaming. Okay? Psycho. This woman was nuts. And then she's like, oh, God showed me the way.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I mean, it wasn't Manitowoc County showing you the way. Right.
Right. So I'm afraid for the safety of my daughter and I. Yeah, they arrived at 10:10 a.m. and they found the car at 10:20.
Oh,
10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes of time that they were putting together what to do, where to go. And 10 minutes later, they found this car.
Yeah.
Boy, let me tell you, I've been to some junkyards as a child. I loved going to junkyards called salvage yards now.
Yeah.
And somebody who is not interested in an auto salvage yard, they don't know where they're looking, what they're looking at, what the hell to even consider to be looking at. 10 minutes? I'm sorry, you're going to spend 10 minutes standing at the gate going, where do we go?
Right.
I spend 10 minutes in a salvage yard and I immediately want to leave.
Really?
I'm going to start scratching my eyeballs out.
I like it. I don't know.
Really?
The salvage yard up in Ham Lake I have been to a couple times. And
Oh,
it was
it's a
actually
good
kind of
time.
fun. It was kind of fun.
You know, back when there was
You guys
older
go together
cars,
next time.
back when it was older cars, it was fascinating to walk through that shit. Nowadays, it's a little too organized. You almost kind of miss the fun stuff, in my opinion. But
I mean, you could find diamonds in the rough where you're like, oh my god, this radio's brand new and they haven't even tore it apart yet.
Absolutely.
I could take that radio out in 2 seconds, and I did.
Who didn't take this shit?
Right, it's how I learned how to take radios out of cars. You know,
Holy thief! Just
I mean, they were old junk radios, but it was still fun to learn. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
So then the other suspicious part of this is that Teresa's plate number was called in by Colburn to run.
Oh, that's
Remember
right.
he called it in?
Yeah.
And he asked, he's like, so here it is. This is the plate number. Who does it belong to? And she told him, and he's like,
missing person.
And it's a missing person, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, and that's a 99 Toyota, right?
Correct. Right.
It's like he knew the make and the model and the license plate of the car that they were looking for. Called it in to verify it was a missing person, but didn't have anything in front of him or any reason to call it in because this is before it was even found.
And I think that they even asked him, "Were you sitting behind the vehicle?" He said, "No."
Right.
You know, was it on the side of the road? No. So where would you get this license?
2 days before
the vehicle was found.
Before it was found.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean,
Obviously,
the cops knew the plate
Wow.
and the make and the model. If I go missing tomorrow, I can guarantee that the cops are not going to know the make and model of my vehicle or the license plate number without having that information. They're not going to know.
Yeah.
You don't just know that shit.
Yeah.
So that was highly suspicious.
Yeah.
The note I wrote on that was when he called that in, when you heard the conversation, it sounded a lot like he was reading it off.
Yep.
Now, making that particular statement myself, that does not necessarily mean he wasn't reading it from a piece of paper. Or why would he read it from a piece of paper versus what was in front of him, per se?
Right.
And when he was asked that in court in the show, he looked a little worried when they brought that to his attention. Like, were you looking at the vehicle? And he's like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he looked a little concerned, like, why would you even ask such a question? Because it would appear that in the phone call, when he made that, it never came to his mind that he would ever get questioned on whether he was staring at the car when he called it in.
Right.
And I know law enforcement can see certain information. If they know somebody's missing, they're going to have information on that person. And then that's going to have, like, the license plate and the car that they were last known registered to their name. But why would he call it in then?
Right.
That's the thing.
Inquiring about it. Why would you even bother? You already had the data in front of you on a piece of paper. What are you calling in?
And on top of the fact, not take any further action after that call. Like, why would you not say, okay, well, I'm at 10-4, I'm at this location, come pick up this vehicle, or let's follow this vehicle, or, let's do something. Why would you call in a vehicle if you have no perception of it in your view, just randomly, and then not take any further action after that?
It's like, were you even on duty?
Right.
Right. While we were watching episode 5, I remember even posing that question. Where was this guy when he made that phone call?
Right.
Because when officers are on duty, I don't know how often they do it, but to me, it seems like every 5 minutes, they're calling in their location, where they're at, what they're doing.
Right.
So where was this guy?
Yep.
But that information never came to light.
No.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
And later on, when they questioned Stephen, because when they were questioning him, it came into light in this. It's a very short period, so you really have to pay attention in this episode to see it. But they were talking about some lights that Stephen saw. He saw headlights, and his brother saw taillights, right, from their properties that were driving onto the salvage yard property.
Yeah.
And they were like, he couldn't answer any questions. He's like, I don't know. I just saw headlights and my brother saw taillights. I don't know where they were going or whatever. And so he's like, well, how do you get into the salvage yard? And he's like,
said-
well, there's lots of ways.
Yeah, lots of pathways, lots of ways.
It's like
It's
nothing's
not
chained. It's
Main roads,
Yeah,
side roads,
yeah, it's not a
it's
through
just
secure-
an
fields. It doesn't
open
matter.
field
no, it's
that they
not a
park cars
secured
on.
salvage
No.
yard. Where a lot of the salvage yards nowadays are very
Right,
secure.
they have like fences.
Very
They
fenced
don't-
in,
right?
one way in, one way
Yep.
out.
They have
Yeah.
nothing like that
In-
here.
in
It's
the
just
Avery
an
case-
open field,
right.
basically,
In the
and
Avery-
there's several ways in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, on that line, Stephen had stated even in that same interview that I made a note about, he had talked about somebody named Tammy who had info about a police officer, he said cop,
Oh, that's right.
that put the car on the property.
Mm-hmm.
He said he knew this Tammy person had info about a cop who put the car on the property. Why was Tammy not interviewed?
Right.
Who is this fucking Tammy?
Why did
Yeah.
the police not follow up on it, and how come it wasn't brought into court? You
Exactly.
Maybe she was
Yeah.
deemed unreliable, but
Right.
at
The
same
defense
time,
would have brought it up. I don't
Yeah.
think they knew about it.
They probably didn't.
Because that was
No.
brought up in the interview with the police officers for the prosecuting side when they
Okay.
arrested him.
Okay.
So I don't know if that data was even put
Yeah,
into a note.
you're right. You're right.
They could have just excluded that from their shit just so that it wouldn't be on record. But it was on
Exactly.
video.
Yep.
He
Wow.
stated that very clearly. What about this person? He asked them, have you figured out about this person
'Cause, yeah,
who claims to know about this cop who put this car on our property?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so nothing comes about that?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Right.
Come on.
Right. Tammy's
That's not thorough
never
investigating.
brought up through this whole series.
No, I don't know any other time the name Tammy has ever been brought up other than that particular point in time.
Yeah.
And if it was completely able to be discredited, you gotta know the prosecution would have said something.
Right.
This person's whacked, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think
Never
that's,
brought up.
That's where we're lucky watching this is from a documentary side, is we're seeing a lot of the stuff that maybe wasn't released to the prosecution, maybe
Yeah.
they didn't know about.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of the interviews and everything that they probably didn't even think to review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good point.
You know, just to back up a little bit, I had a note that false testimony about the joke that was stated.
Mm-hmm.
I had that
The Bobby Dassey.
the Bobby Dassey stated that was said on the 10th.
Yes, yeah, good.
But in fact,
Yep.
he said it actually happened on the 3rd.
Which was before the car was found.
Right.
Okay.
So on the 3rd, this joke was said to somebody completely different, and Bobby Dassey claims on the 10th he said it to him.
Which is after the
Funny.
car was found.
Right.
Wow.
So completely, timeline was completely
Yeah.
screwed up with that information, but yet it was never
Brought up in
addressed.
court? Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was a problem there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one difference that I noticed between the Bobby Dassey and Brendan Dassey is that Bobby's a little bit smarter, but not like in the intelligence way,
Right.
like more in the criminalistic way.
Yeah. I
so
agree.
that, he's a little bit more cunning,
Mhm.
and, his brother's a little bit more innocent.
Right. Bobby Dassey definitely seems, I guess, if you were going to put any kind of intellectual balance on it, he seems to be a little bit higher in that, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's a good person. It just may mean that he has the ability to be, like you're saying, a little bit more cunning for beating factual information for evidential purposes or not. Just to be more conniving, I guess you could say.
Right.
But-
Not so innocent and open as his brother.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that he looks like an axe murderer either, but
Right.
Definitely a little bit of a whack job there.
well, that's all the stuff that I have for episode 6. I
No,
suggest
5. We're on
sorry,
5.
episode 5, and we're going on to episode 6 unless you guys have anything more.
I've covered all the notes that I had,
Yeah.
back
Okay.
notes and everything.
All
Did
right,
you have anything,
so
Cheryl? Just
I
on
think
episode
that
5?
was- I think that was it.
So we're gonna do something that's a little bit unusual. We're gonna take a short break here because our son just walked in.
Yeah.
So, but we'll be right back with you.
So we're going to be on pause here. We will return, and we will pick up on episode 6. Now, you really won't notice any kind of a break because we're just going to pause here, and then we'll pick up right away
Yep.
In 2
on
seconds.
episode 6. So
Yep.
please
Back-
bear with us for a moment.
Back in 2 and 2.
2 and 2. All right, we're back from our break. We appreciate the time. We got to hang out with our son a little bit, got some treats from his fantastic restaurant. We are coming back to episode 6, and Cheryl's going to finish up her Facebook shit, and we're going to get to it. Now, Jen was going through episode 5. I don't know if, Cheryl, you want to go off your notes or you want me to go off mine,
Doesn't
and then
matter
we'll
to
fill
me.
in? Well, I'll take a turn then.
No,
All right.
No.
You want Cheryl to go?
You guys both got a whole episode or whole 2
Do you want to go
each.
some more?
I'm going to go some
Oh,
more.
Jen's feeling a little sandbox-ish here. So, okay, we'll let her kick it around a little bit.
The reason I said that is because I started with the very first scene that you see in episode 6, which is actually just a statement that they put on the monitor.
That's good. We can go with your stuff.
Basically, it was one day after Brendan's arrest and a year before Stephen's trial. Ken Kratz holds a press conference, and he's giving details about the case, about like what happened. So feeding it into the media, feeding it into the public eye about what they suspect happened, even though they haven't even gone through any kind of legal trials yet.
This is one day after Brendan's
arrest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Why would he be giving details like this? This is not normal.
Right.
It basically lets everybody know the details of the property, that it gives everybody a perspective, right? That isn't necessarily true yet.
Predisposition.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it basically negates the possibility of a fair trial. I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
That's my suspicion.
Right.
Oddly, I made a note about the same thing, that it started with the details of actions during the murder, the stomach stabbing, the throat cutting, but yet there was no blood found in the bedroom, in the mattress, in the sheets. We find this out later on in episode 6 on the testing that they talked with the forensics technician. They never even sent that stuff over for forensic testing.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry. You cut somebody, they're bleeding, especially in the damn throat.
Right.
I don't care what you try to do. There's some blood coming out of your neck fast.
Yeah.
It's going to be on sheets, pillows, mattress, that shit soaking in. I don't care how much bleach you pour on that shit. You are not getting all of that out.
Right.
And none of it was ever sent over.
Nope.
And all of that information that you were talking about was passed off of Brendan Dassey's confession information. No evidence ever presented proving that his statements were accurate.
Right. On top of the fact, and this is just jumping slightly ahead, where Strang says there's 5 ounces of blood in a human body.
5
quarts.
Quarts. I
wrote it
liters
down.
maybe. Not
yes,
liters.
5 quarts. 5 quarts.
5 quarts. Yeah.
5 quarts of blood in a human body. Where is any of it?
Yeah, not a drop.
Not a drop. And you're right. The introduction to season 6 is Ken Kratz with the media presentation, and he's like, "There's no DNA." That ... But we have physical evidence.
Oh, where is that?
Where the fuck is the DNA?
Right.
I'm sorry.
And what
physical
evidence?
Physical evidence that's
DNA
planted.
would be physical.
Exactly.
In jumping into the current, is they did find bleach on Brendan Dassey's pants. However, Stephen asked him earlier on in the day to help him clean something, and they were cleaning with bleach.
Okay.
Which is why they said, "Oh, well, there was bleach used to clean the garage." Really?
Right.
And did they use it all throughout the bedroom too? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
Just because
Here's a
bleach
confession.
found.
You slit somebody's throat. There's
Here's a
blood
confession.
exploding everywhere.
I just did my laundry earlier, and there's fucking bleach in there.
Right.
I didn't clean my goddamn garage with it.
Right.
And if you find bleach in my pants in the laundry, it's because it was in the fucking washer.
Right.
Not that I was
you're
washing
fucking
it,
murdering
bleaching
somebody.
a dead body in my
Right.
garage.
Exactly.
Okay. So it doesn't fucking matter.
No.
And if you get a few drops on your pants, that doesn't mean shit. If you're cleaning a garage, shot a dead body in, I'm sorry. There's going to be a lot of fucking bleach on your pants.
Right.
Not just a couple of drops here and there, spills, whatever it is they found.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot more than that. Plus the fact that kind of spray, they didn't even find evidence in that garage. And we're getting to the end of 6.
They call them particles. The blood splatter, the spray, the particles.
Right.
Because they can even see little tiny particles that the normal eye or whatever would miss. They didn't find anything.
Well, on top
like
of the
that.
fact that all of that, I'm just going to use a blunt word, and I don't know if it is, just a trash that's amongst that garage.
Right.
Do you really think that Stephen Avery and his nephew took apart each and every piece of particle of that trash, scrubbed it real good, and then replaced it back into where it's been kind of thrown astrew.
And Cheryl, what you're talking about identifying as trash, let's just be clear, you're talking about an auto salvage yard.
Yes.
And what people see as trash is a lot of tools and equipment used in the auto salvage business, as well as parts and I guess what you would call aftermarket stuff laying around.
Okay.
It does look like trash to most people because it's a junkyard.
Even on top of it, some of the photographs showed cardboard boxes.
Yeah, tons of it.
Right. Did you guys see the giant wooden barrel? Do you know how hard it is to clean blood out of a barrel? Any kind of wood?
Well, like Cheryl pointed out,
That's
the
not
cardboard
finished.
boxes. You bleach a cardboard box, you're gonna fucking see bleach on the box.
Yeah. So then they scrub it off there real good and then throw it back into the pile so it looked like it was just...
What, did they refurbish the
for
fucking
years,
cardboard to make it look like cardboard fresh?
Exactly.
Come on.
And
That's
I
bullshit.
think they collected dust in their hands very carefully and
Right.
just
Put
sprinkled
it on
it.
top. Yeah, because it was all
Where you put the
dusted.
grease on the floor
Right,
from,
exactly.
50 years of fucking
Scrub the
auto
metal
salvage.
and throw that in there
God.
somewhere.
We
It's
can't
just
make this look
unfucking
clean.
believable.
It's got to be clean, but we can't make it look clean.
Right.
So why don't we spray some patina paint on these parts?
Yeah.
Because that's so easy to come by.
It was fucking
Right.
impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's some shit,
Yep.
man.
No DNA, but physical evidence.
And I know we started episode 6 and almost bounced to the end, but
Yeah.
it's incredible stuff. So
Well, because it kind of comes back to that, which
It
I think
does.
was important to
It
note.
does.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So then again, jumping backwards in time, back to the beginning of the episode, is they searched again 4 months later after the initial search, the day of Brendan's arrest. They moved the items, right? The police department said, "Did you move all of the items?" And they said, "Well, for the most part." We don't know what that means because they never elaborated.
No.
Virtually, I think, is the word they use. Well, virtually is not reality.
Everything.
Virtually
That's not everything.
Right.
Okay,
No.
it's not an answer. But they moved all the items. This was by Dave Rimnicker? I don't know.
Homo. Who knows?
And they said they found a flattened bullet fragment.
Right. Which I think episode 6 really kind of focused on
Yeah.
Was the
bullet
bullet
evidence and
fragment,
the
the
DNA
fragments.
shit around that.
Right. And they found like 11 shells just in the garage alone. But then they admitted later, Tom Fassbender even said this, that there was literally, shells all around the property. And because the defense said, he's like, yeah, they're out there shooting rabbits and squirrels and whatever.
Deer, yeah.
I mean, there's going to be bullets everywhere. And he's
Sighting
like, oh,
their
yeah.
rifles.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you sight a rifle, you shoot rounds off.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people that live in the country are very familiar with that. It's just kind of it's a thing to do as a social aspect.
I thought about shooting a rifle off today.
Yeah.
I think I'd get in trouble where we live, though.
Right. In the city, it's kind of troublemaking. In the country, it's kind of a little bit more
Yeah,
liberal.
nobody
Yeah,
cares.
no,
Exactly.
no.
And
I
I mean,
agree.
you remember we used to shoot rats on Uncle Bobby's property.
Yeah.
I mean, there were shells everywhere.
Dad even grounded me because when we were shooting the rats in the chicken pen, because my gun, although it was on safety, I was kind of swinging it about as like a 5-year-old child would do. I had a shotgun in my hand as a 5-year-old child. Trying to take care of rats. It was probably a pellet gun, but it felt like
It was
a
a
shotgun.
pellet gun.
Yeah, it felt like a
we were
shotgun.
doing pellets.
And it actually aimed at either my sister or my brother.
Right. Dad was like,
Dad,
you're done.
I was grounded for the rest of the day. So, yeah.
I honestly got grounded too because I had a rat in my sight with the pellet. I mean, I could
And
have
you
hit
didn't
that
shoot it?
motherfucker dead on. And I was like,
And you got grounded
I
because...
don't want to kill it.
Right.
And they're like, Jen, you're done.
Nice, exactly. So both me and my sister got grounded for a tiny little reason like
And I'm
that.
pretty sure Andy killed it.
So Cheryl got grounded for almost killing a sibling.
Right.
Jen got grounded for having a
not,
vag.
For having a vag tonight. For not killing an animal. Anyway, we digress. There's a
having a
lot of
vag.
shells on properties like that. We
Right.
personally know this,
Right.
although we weren't handling shotguns.
No.
That's just how it is.
Yep.
So, and they said there was no bullets found on November 6th or any of the other searches. But suddenly, on March 2nd of 2006, one tiny bullet fragment was found by an air compressor. What? I mean, and they asked the officer, they're like, so was Lieutenant Link available at any of those Oh yeah, he was there all three.
Oh,
all three
shocker.
times. Yeah.
Real
Surprise.
Yeah.
This fucker is just bad seed all the way. I don't care.
Yeah. And
At
the
this point, even
Fassbender-
we're only roughly halfway through this series, and that son of a bitch, he's just a bad seed.
Yeah.
He's got some involvement here that is just
deep-seated
inappropriate.
and dark.
Inappropriate for legalities
Yeah.
and being professional.
Yeah.
I think he's just wrong
Yeah.
for that. Just that basic aspect of it. He shouldn't be involved at all.
No.
Well, and it takes a lot for actors, especially the ones that we know, to convince us that they're bad guys. You know, even if we've never seen them before, it takes a lot to convince me that you're an actual bad guy when I'm watching a movie. These guys are just bad guys.
Yeah.
So
Naturally.
they're not acting because they don't know how to act.
They're not trying to
Yeah.
prove it. They're
Yeah.
just there.
It just, you get that vibe off of them. You're like, oh, okay, you could have played Loki in Thor.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been that entertaining, but yeah, you could have done it.
Yeah. Yep.
Does anybody else have any? Did you guys write anything down
on the
that?
flattened bullet thing
Yeah,
that was
the
found
flat
March
bullet, yep.
2006? I have that. Also shell casings, as you pointed out, from the 22, and never found in no other prior searches. Nothing. And from being in the military, we fired some rounds that are a lot more powerful than 22s, and you didn't find that shit anywhere after it impacted things. Now, I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty positive. If you fired a 22 into a human body, where they're claiming to have fired it into her skull, it's not coming out the other side flattened. It's not coming out at all.
Right,
It's going to be in her head
It
yet.
bounces around.
And they would have found it if they, in fact, incinerated that body
Right.
anywhere
Right.
in that location. So, how is it the thing is anywhere in that garage anyway? That's the questions that I have. I'm sorry, 22 does not go through anybody's head.
Well, even if it does break the bone, which is unlikely, it bounces around inside the body, which is why they say a 22 can cause the most damage, because if you can shoot it just right and get it to enter the body, it bounces off bones because it doesn't have enough strength to go through.
Right.
So
And,
it causes a lot of tissue damage and internal bleeding.
Okay.
and I don't think it mushrooms out as smooth as it does if it hits something solid.
Okay.
And from what they showed in the pictures,
That thing was fucking pancake.
yeah,
flat.
it looked like it
Yeah.
hit something solid and just mushroomed straight out.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a forensic scientist. No, none of us are.
Right.
But from the things that I've seen, that's not happening.
Yeah. And how?
It's-
Okay, so how long in diameter or
A 22 is not that
22.
big.
Even if
22
it's
inches,
even if
right? No?
no,
I mean,
even if it's
22
a
millimeters.
even if it's a shotgun,
millimeters? Okay.
even if it's a 22 shotgun, the actual bullet fragment is like small. It's very small.
Right. I'm just trying to understand how much it would how much impact it would take to flatten a shell.
Oh,
That-
well,
Because-
that's distance velocity you're
Okay.
talking, and they're claiming it was point blank range,
Okay.
which is going to create a lot of spatter. It's going to go through the skull, but it's not coming out the other side. It's going to
Okay.
stop inside.
Okay.
And it's going to cause damage.
Okay.
In jumping to the end, they actually did investigate the gun if it was point blank at a 22. I can tell you, I fired a 22 revolver, right? That was very like a compact revolver, and I got powder burned. Like I almost dropped the gun.
That was a
like,
revolver.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a snub nose revolver 22. Yeah, that shit fucking stings you, man.
So
Okay.
if you're gonna point,
And they're
blank,
talking a rifle now.
even if it was a rifle or handgun, whatever. If you're point blank, that shit sprays out.
Okay.
Not just the powder, but the blood. I mean, there's going to be particles everywhere, and they didn't find anything on the guns.
Right. Except for
Nothing.
bullets. Or no, was it just the shells that they found?
They just found shells.
They found, and I don't know if I'm stepping on.
various shells.
Right, they found various shells.
Yeah.
But and I think if I remember right, they only found a few projectiles. However, the only evidence of any kind of DNA they found was some kind of possible tracings mixed with the technician's tracings on that one projectile.
Right.
I find it hard to believe that you're going to find that small amount on that projectile that went supposedly through a body and nothing on the rifle at close range.
Okay.
Not going to happen.
And that was Sherry Calhoun. I'm not sure if I'm saying that last word correctly.
That the DNA expert?
The DNA
Okay.
expert. And basically, they did a test where they wash the bullet, and then they do the test from the liquid. And, she said the DNA was from Teresa, but also that it was also from her because she inadvertently introduced her own DNA into and she's been doing this job for years. Yeah. And she thought it was because she was speaking and she was teaching trainees. And one of the questions was, well, if you've been doing this for years, you would know how far you would need to be in order to not contaminate a specimen. And they asked her, they're like, when you get a specimen that's been contaminated by you or otherwise, you're supposed to rule it as being inconclusive.
Yep. Protocol.
Right.
Was,
the protocol.
Should have been concluded that
and they're
it was
like, you didn't do that.
Yep.
Why did you do that? And her first response was, well, because it was approved by somebody else.
Right. Which
right.
brings us back to that phone message that she had taken.
Because the phone
DNA
message
expert
said that from Tom Fassbender,
saying told her to
try to put
her in his house or
garage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which was striking to me. Absolutely. Like, what the fuck?
Right. And they asked her, they're like, well, what DNA did you get from that? And she goes, well, it was nucleated cells. And they asked her, is that just blood? She goes, no, that could be blood or anything else. Sweat.
I thought the defense attorney actually pointed out to her that was the facts, that it could have been from anywhere nucleated cells, and she agreed.
She agreed, right?
Right. So not to put the words in her mouth, but she agreed that was factual.
Exactly. It's it's not verbatim. Yeah,
so that means that they could have even taken a swab of Teresa Hellbeck's inner mouth or inner.
Judging by the nucleated cells, by what they're saying, that they could have been from any point in her body. Yeah. They could have very well just raked their finger across her cheek and put it on there, and it'd been the same damn thing. Not that somebody else's DNA wouldn't be involved then as well,
right?
But they could have taken a swab from damn near anywhere to do that, and they had DNA to do that with because they had bone fragment,
right?
They could have taken it from there with a swab. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. And they asked her, why is this the first time in your career that you deviated
from that protocol?
From that protocol. Yeah. She
Very
said,
good point.
It was approved.
Yeah.
So
Suspicious.
it was very crazy with that.
Yeah.
And point out the prosecuting attorney with that information was pointing out that she was using common sense. I'm sorry, when you're investigating, your fucking own personal common sense don't come into play. What comes into play is facts.
Right.
The data you collect is facts, and this is what it says.
Yep.
And your protocol dictates what you determine to be fact or non-fact. And her protocol says what she found was inconclusive.
So she broke protocol.
But she broke that. That's in my opinion,
should have been thrown out.
No evidence at all.
Exactly.
That evidence does not exist
Yeah.
because it's bullshit at that point.
Yep. And then the other thing is, I noticed the pieces of skull and the bone fragment. They found 7 pieces of skull, and then about 20 plus pieces of bone fragments or whatever. And they called it radio opaque particles, which mean burn marks around the bone pieces, which would indicate gunshot. And it's okay, so we got that. But let's talk about the bone fragments themselves. We talked about how a fire can't create that kind of thing. If anybody's ever seen a skeleton that's actually been consumed by fire, it doesn't leave fragments like that.
Right.
If it was hot enough to burn it, it would just be ash. What the hell created this many bones? I mean, it literally looks like somebody took a sledgehammer to her body,
right,
and just repeatedly
or wood chipper
pulverized her, or a wood chipper, to make these consistent small tiny pieces.
I would in your description, I think pulverized is almost better. And even that doesn't seem right, because a wood chipper, you'd have seen some kind of shearing marks on bone fragments,
right?
And with some kind of I guess hammering device, there'd be some shit going on there that you probably even also find. I don't know how this body was destroyed,
right?
But it was not through incineration,
no.
Because that would have just left behind a calcium skeleton that was just mushed.
Yeah,
right.
And it would not have been in the shape of the fragments that we've seen them show in the TV series.
And you don't get inconsistencies when you burn something like you're talking about a cremation of a body. You don't get inconsistencies where one piece of bone is in place and the other is ash, and one piece of bone is in place and the other is ash. And that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
It looked like it was separated in some kind of fashion.
Right.
But if it was completely incinerated in any way, shape, or form, I would assume if you got it hot enough to do that, there would be some very jagged, rough edges under microscope, even macroscope. You would see that because it wouldn't have came apart as evenly as it looks. It almost looks half dissolved, doesn't it? Like something rounded, smooth shit out.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No. Well, on top of the fact that I think that one thing that was pointed out that was never discovered was that Stephen Avery had a smelter ring.
Good point.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah, on his property.
A smelter would dissolve that shit
Right.
because that's hot enough. That's hotter than a
calcium.
cremation device.
Yeah.
That has to liquefy metal,
Right.
and it gets damn hot.
Why would he, if he was the one who had done this, why would he just not have put the body in there?
Yeah, why a
was that ever
bonfire?
investigated? Yeah, exactly.
A smelter
Why
would have taken care of this
why
shit
shooting,
permanently.
chopping it up, whatever the fuck they did to this body? Why was that? Yeah, exactly.
If he was smart enough to obliviate every fucking particle of DNA in his house, in his garage, why would he not be smart enough to put her body in the smelter?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Right. Was it ever investigated? I mean, exactly.
No.
None of it.
And
no.
there's 3 different burn sites. Let's make that clear. There's 3 different burn sites on the property, including on his
Let's be
sister's
clear, even
Brenda's
a little bit more
property.
clear. 3 sites on his property they're claiming because
To
the
find
one
bones.
guy
Right.
that I don't know if you're getting to him that was on the stands about the fragments that were found. His commentary was leaning to the fact that those fragments came from a different burn site. So I don't know if you were getting to that point
Yep.
with
Yes,
what you were
coming
saying.
back
but,
to
okay.
the
Yeah.
original comment in season 5 saying that there's evidence that the bones were moved.
Yeah,
which
that was my
the
last
DNA or
comments.
the expert from the prosecution side that she said she couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy was like, no, there's evidence that the bones are moved, and there's 3 different places. Why on earth, if you were gonna kill somebody in your garage and burn them in the back of your property, would you move them to 2 other sites, including right next to your sister's house?
Right. Scott
way down-
Fairgrave.
Right,
Fairgrave
there you go.
was the forensic
And then
analysis.
way down to the gravel pit,
Yeah.
which is much further.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you scatter shit like that? It doesn't make any sense.
Yep. He tells
On your
things-
own damn property.
Yeah. Right. He tells things about where the body was burned. He does not agree that the body was burned where it was found. The bones were obviously moved. In his opinion, he has reviewed many cases, and this was not the burn site where the bones lay.
If it to clarify what his statement was is that he was involved with many cases, and typically if the body was not incinerated where it was found, being incinerated someplace else, then where it is found, it's
Tampered.
much more evident. There's not the minimal amount of fragments they found. It is more complete.
Mm-hmm.
And where they had found it on his property was in a barrel in that bonfire pit, the gravel pit. And in the end of the episode, we learn that they find evidence of blood in the back of her RAV4.
Mm-hmm.
That is, now, in my opinion, this evidence is good evidence that it was smeared blood from her hair,
Right.
that she was in that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
so how is it? Let's just put this little story together. Raped, stabbed in the stomach, throat cut in a bedroom of a trailer. Taken to a garage and shot. And just outside of that, burned in a pit. Why? Oh, why? Was she ever put in the back of her car to move her 100 feet?
Right, exactly.
When they were apparently
Mhm.
claimed to have dragged her anywhere.
Yeah.
What the fuck point would that ever be?
Yeah.
To put her in her own car and then try to hide that car somewhere where we've learned there's a crusher. We've learned there's a smelter. Why would you try to burn her in a bonfire, which a bunch of people were coming over to see? None of this shit is making any sense
Right.
at all.
Hell
at this
no!
point.
If I was on that property and wanted to kill somebody and I knew I had a smelter, that's where they'd be going.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if I couldn't fit them in that,
Obliteration.
Mm-hmm.
the crusher, if they couldn't fit in the smelter, the crusher's coming into play.
Right.
And then they're going back into the smelter.
Then they're going to the
exactly.
smelter.
Right.
Now there would be reason to be in that RAV4.
Yeah.
but there would be a lot more evidence happening around that crusher and the smelter because there'd be calcium from bone fragments in the
You'd
smelter.
find more than just blood in the back of that vehicle. You'd find,
Pieces.
bone particles. You'd find, a lot
Tissue.
more. Right.
And
lot more than just blood.
And being in an auto salvage business, you would instantly throw the truck in the crusher, throw the body in the smelter. Done, and done. And then throw the RAV4 in the smelter.
Particularly if you're smart enough to clean up so much DNA to never be found.
Right. And not even that. I mean, not even having to be smart enough to clean up all the DNA. Just throw it all in there. All done. You know? Yep. So obviously her being thrown in the RAV4 in the back, she had to travel a distance of miles.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're probably bouncing about
I'm going to take it to, I'm going to burn her a little bit. Then I'm going to transport her body to another area, and I'm going to burn her a little bit more.
Right.
And then I'm going to transport her to the gravel pit, which is way the fuck out there, and I'm going to burn her some
more. No, just drop a couple pieces of her pelvis in there.
Right. We're
and then take her back.
Her vagina.
Yeah.
In this. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's some shit. We bounced around a lot there, Jim, but let's get back to your notes there and see where we're going.
Oh, just the cocksucker guy.
Scott.
He sounds, the Scott.
Tadic?
I don't know. He sounds like he has a cock in the mouth when he talks.
Right.
So.
Not that we're trying to be judgmental or anything.
He's saying nobody else can verify his whereabouts of the day because he took the day off. And somebody said, "Oh, so you skipped work?" He's like, "No, I didn't skip work. I took the day off."
Right, which is basically the same thing.
Same thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't say you were playing hooky.
Right.
What are you already guilty?
What are you so defensive about?
Guilty.
Right. Around 3 p.m.
Right. He said he came home from the hospital between 2:30 and 4:15 p.m. But the police report says that he came home at 2:15, and he's like, "No, I don't recall that." So they gave him a statement.
3:15.
2:15.
Oh, I had 3:15.
Okay. They gave him a statement. Oh, maybe it was 3:15. I might have written that down. Did you guys both have 3:15?
I did.
Okay.
I had said Scott said that he was home around 3 p.m. on his way to go hunting. Saw Bobby Dassey with a 10-foot high fire at the time. This was on the police report.
Yeah, 10 feet. It was a garage, 10 feet high. I don't know about how
10
many
feet
other
high
garages people have out there, but mine's not 10 feet high.
Right. But
our garage, the interior ceiling is pushing 11 feet high. So the outside, if you're talking about gables and shit,
right?
You're talking 15 plus.
Jeez.
And on a salvage yard, that outbuilding, fuck, that thing's got to be huge.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's got to be 50 feet or anything like that, but it's not no standard residential fucking garage.
No. And on top of the fact that then the police record, which was 3 months before or whatever, is that he told the police record that he arrived home November 29th. That day, he's home by 3:15. Flames were only 3 feet high at that time. Kind of a little suspicious in my mind.
I should add, our garage is not the norm. So maybe the norm is only about 8 feet inside. I don't know.
Right.
Depending on we lived in a house that was built in 1905, Cheryl, you and I, and the garage was not just 10 feet high. That motherfucker was huge inside.
When you're talking gables and stuff, that the point where it comes up to, that is greater than 10 feet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where at the edge ends, might be talking 8-10, maybe for an auto salvage yard, but they never made it clear on what measurement he was going by either.
Right.
So it's not impossible for it to have been that way.
Mm-hmm.
It just, the inconsistency with the statement of being from 3 to 10, that's a huge fucking change.
Exactly.
That's not just it's off by a couple inches shit. That's way off.
Yep, is extremely.
You know the difference between 3 and 10 feet.
Yeah.
3 feet's less than my head, 10 is over my head.
Right. And this guy's an officer, so
or previous officer or something like that, wasn't he?
He's law enforcement of some kind. He was the one that got Steven in trouble because of his wife. Yeah. That he ran his wife off the road.
Okay, so that's where he comes in.
That's where he comes in. I mean, this has been since '85. This guy is just he's pro law enforcement.
Yeah. If you jump into a pool that's 3 feet high, you're in the difference between
it's at your waist.
Right, exactly.
10 feet high.
That's what I'm saying. Over and below your head, you kind of get the gist between 3 and 10.
Exactly. Yep.
So, Bobby says he woke up at like 2:30 at one point, and now all of a sudden he says he woke up at 2:45. Instantly sees Teresa from the window taking pictures.
2:30, right?
No, well, he originally said 2:30.
Okay.
But then later on, in the second time we saw him, it was 2:45.
It was 2. Okay, so he did change
so
it. I didn't catch that.
Right. So he said between 2:45 and 3 is when he started taking photographs and walking towards the trailer. Yeah. So
that he was guessing, or by the time when he was getting ready to go hunting with his bows.
He took a shower.
Yeah,
sorry,
he took a shower.
Sorry. I couldn't read my notes. That's why I kind of trailed off.
She's fading to the side of the microphone.
Right. He took a shower, and when he left, he said he didn't see her. Right, like she had disappeared into the trailer. Is pretty much what he was implying.
Right.
Okay.
So he's already on the road. He sees Scott, and he's like, he could verify my exact time.
Right.
And they're like, well,
how do you know that?
And he's like, well, I assume he was looking at his watch. So, yeah, dumb as a motherfucker. I assume this person was looking at, so they can verify my exact whereabouts at the exact time. All right, retard.
I'm sorry, when I passed...
There we go again with the retard. I apologize. I don't mean that disparagingly.
Yeah, because I constantly, whenever I pass you guys, coming down the road, I instantly look at my clock.
Yeah, that's the thing. I say hi to Cheryl, and I look at my clock, just a clock. Oh,
I do that and make a note about what you're doing at the time.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Shit.
Idiot.
Yeah, this was not previously talked about, with the two.
Right.
Not at
and
all.
so then they interview Leslie Butchner, I think her name
Was
is.
the bus driver.
She's the bus
Before
driver.
we get to the bus driver.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm just going to touch on some notes that are further back so I don't miss any points that I had, because what you're going to talk about with the bus driver is very, very important to the timeline of things. A note that I had was the defense attorneys discussed Brendan not being a good witness for any side because he was very inconsistent for even the prosecution on the story of the information that would ever become to pass.
Brendan or Bobby?
Brendan,
right.
because he's making up stuff, and it's never the same. So they pointed out that because they decided to drop Brendan, it was beneficial for both sides, but the defense obviously was looking from their side, but it was because for the prosecution, he couldn't be consistent on their side. And for the defense, of course, it would have been very beneficial to see that. But at the same time, it's helpful not to have him come up and try to convict anybody by his statements, which was interesting. But the newscast of those details makes for a problem. That early in the very beginning of episode 6 that you were talking about special prosecuting attorney was pointing out on all that data that Brendan was passing that took place. Although it was all false that we can determine, it was already put out there for people to know.
Yeah.
So him not testifying doesn't matter at this point anymore, which is very, very wrong. And how is that not a mistrial?
Right.
It's bringing to light information that is not accurate and not going to be used by prosecution, nor can it be defended by the defense attorneys or cross-examined by defense attorneys, I should say. So all of a sudden, all this data is already pushed on one side of the fence, and people are going to judge on that. Right. So that was some real problematic stuff from my perspective that prosecuting attorneys used to their advantage. That was just wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
The other thing I had was bone fragments that you discussed. That it was obvious when we saw that and what they were pointing out. There's gunshot wounds to the skull bones that they found. You could see that there was a hole there, which is nobody's disagreeing with that. But who did it is a different story. And the bullets don't have clear DNA on them. Just this tracing of it of some kind.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't there be some kind of gray matter if it was in the head?
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
yeah.
brain tissue of some kind, distinctively. Maybe not, but a question I had when they talked about that is, what really happened to Teresa?
Right.
The only thing that we could ever come up with at this point was obviously somebody shot her in the head. Somebody shot her, period.
Right.
But what the hell happened to her after that fact? Look at what has become of her body.
Right.
That these bone fragments are produced, obviously, from what we're concluding, placed on somebody else's property. Somebody mutilated this body that is out there free yet today.
Because it's not just 7 pieces of bone, which they showed
it was
of
a
the skull.
Box.
Of the skull. It was a box of tiny little bone
Which isn't even her
fragments.
complete skull.
No. And that's not
Where's
even
the
her
rest of
complete
her?
body.
Right.
what the fuck happened to this poor woman?
Yeah.
That they have these tiny little pieces. And I find it atrocious that the family believes this bullshit. Why would they not be fighting harder than anybody else?
I want to know where the rest of her is.
Truth.
Right.
That's what I'd be saying.
Exactly. I want to know what the fuck happened to her.
Yep.
Did she get
Where's the rest of her?
by an
Because
axe?
there's some nutbag.
You know,
Even if this guy didn't do it speculatively, if there was enough evidence to say he did, but questionably, if somebody else did it, where the hell are they? Because look what they did to this person.
Yeah.
Right.
They're going to do it
And
again.
they're out there.
They're going to do it again.
Even if they
That's
don't,
what I'm
they're
saying.
out there and
If
they're
you were
walking
this-
free.
Like all of us, if one of us today, right, all of a sudden one of us disappeared, and this is the evidence that they were able to come up with, would you be satisfied with them blaming somebody? Would you not go to all extent
to find out what exactly
happened?
Every
What are
single
all the
detail.
possibilities?
Yep.
The only reason why I'd be content enough with the data they produce is if I knew the rest of it already.
Right.
Right.
They don't.
And you don't.
No.
So
Unless
would you
I
not
did it.
Keep digging.
Right.
Unless I had something to do with it or I did it,
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't be satisfied.
Yeah.
I would still be outwardly angry and say, you know, we found this, blah, blah, okay, I still want to know. I would make that statement.
Yep.
To be clear, I still want to know more.
Yeah. You want all of the
This
pieces
is all I
put
got.
together.
This is all I can work with. But there is more to know, and I want to know what it is.
And honest to God, I don't care what the court system did. If something happened to you or Cheryl, I would go like vigilante status. I would do everything I could to find out every fucking detail that I could.
Batman style?
Pretty much.
Right. Yeah. Well,
So
why
another-
would you not? Why would you not?
Yeah.
As a family member.
Absolutely,
That's
especially
just-
as a family member. I'm sorry if
Yeah.
one of our kids ended up that way. I'm sorry. There is no way anything short of the Secret Service finding every piece of our child would ever be acceptable.
No.
Yeah.
Ever.
Even if it was like one person cut off his toe, I want to know who that fucker was. You
And
know,
I
it
will be
is,
willing to go to
whatever.
fucking prison
Exactly.
to kill that motherfucker. It doesn't make sense to me.
She's crossing her fingers, by the way. She's
No,
just
I'm
kidding.
not. I'm not kidding.
See, the other thing that I had was, I think I pointed this out, though, that no DNA was found on the bedding, the mattress, the carpet.
That was
Right.
never
The
even
carpet,
sent to her.
exactly.
Well, the bedding and the mattress weren't sent to
It
her.
wasn't sent to her, so technically they couldn't test
But
it.
the carpet and the knives and
Right. Some of it wasn't sent. I think I've grouped it all together. Some wasn't sent. But the stuff, if it wasn't sent, it's because it was obvious nothing was there.
They sent 7 knives to her.
7 knives, carpet, and many other items, nothing had Teresa Halbach's DNA on it.
right. Even like some of the
Or
random,
Brendan Dassey,
Right.
who was claimed to have handled knives to stab her with.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
So I
But
just, I don't get it.
Yet they just get Stephen Avery's
Right.
DNA on her keychain and nobody else.
Right.
It's just,
What the hell is
Right.
that?
none of it makes sense.
No.
The smelter on the property, we talked about that. I won't bring that up again. We've talked about the blood in the back of her car. How did it even get there? That was one thing that I questioned. However, oddly enough, they found the traces in the back of her car, but nothing in his trailer.
Nowhere else. Or on the grounds.
Right. How did it get in the car?
Right. Exactly.
Did he just get tired?
Right. Right.
Well, if the question is, how did it get in the car if she was already bleeding? If she was
In the
bleeding from the
bed.
trailer,
Yep.
it would have been some trace
Trails.
somewhere
Yep.
to the car.
Yep.
Well, and getting all psychopath here. So if I have somebody in my garage that's bleeding and I burn them in the back of my fire pit, how much liquid is actually going to be there, as in blood?
Yeah,
I
not
move the body?
much.
Yeah.
So even in that
Yeah.
perspective, we're talking even before the burning then.
Right.
There
was no
where's any
charring
other
or-
trace of
Did
blood
you go out
other
to the
than
gravel
car?
pit first?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Which there was no blood out there.
But I'm going to take
Oh.
a third of her body over to this place, and then another third of her body over to this place, and they're never going to find all of them because there's
Right.
apparently several more places, or at least one more place.
So I know you got a point here, Cheryl, but out of deductive reasoning, if you think about this, there's blood in the back of her car,
Yeah.
which means it had to be transported from some location to the back of her car before it was ever torched. Okay, if that's the case, if that is true to description, then that means her body was damaged before burning somewhere else
Yeah.
before getting into the back of that car.
Yeah. Yep.
And that somewhere else was nowhere on that property because
No.
they searched that thing for 8 days.
Right.
And all they came up with was a bullshit bogus key thing. Okay, so I'm sorry, this doesn't add up. With the way they're saying that she was murdered with knives, stab wounds, bullet wounds, and the only blood you find of hers is in the back of her car.
Right.
Where's the rest?
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
They even dug up his garage, saying that she
the
got concrete pieces,
hoping it soaked into
exactly.
there.
I mean, she got
where the
shot.
gunshots were.
She got shot in the garage
No
5
trace.
times. No trace of
trace
blood
on the rifle.
under the cement, in the cement,
In the cracks.
right?
And there was no bleach in there either.
Exactly.
So if they would have sprayed that fucking garage with bleach, this shit would have gotten the cracks.
Yep, absolutely. Nothing on his property with her DNA.
It's all bullshit. There's just nothing adding up.
Nope.
So the last thing I have before you get to the point you want to make, Jim, which is a very good one, is the thing that I wrote down towards the end of episode 6 when we were talking about Bobby Dassey. I'm going to read you exactly the note I wrote based on the information I was witnessing at the time in the series.
Okay.
I think he did it or had some involvement. That's my opinion on Bobby Dassey.
I agree.
And when you talk about the next point you're going to make dealing with that bus driver, you're going to see some timeline that is likely to put him in that vicinity. And I will tell you right now, I have no problem Bobby Dassey looking you in the face and accusing you of being part of this, if not the sole purpose or person involved here. I have no problem doing that. I'm not hiding behind anything.
Yep.
That's my opinion at this point. Drunk or not.
Well, and if you make a move, I'm there.
That's right. I got my muscle behind me.
I'm trained. I can take him down.
I'm drunk and she'll kick your ass. So go ahead, Jen.
So
unless
that
you have
brings
anything
us
else, Cheryl.
to the bus driver that says she dropped off Brendan.
She
and
said the Dassey boys.
The Dassey boys.
Which does not include Bobby because he's not in.
No, I thought he
high
was
school.
younger at that time or on the bus. No,
No, Bobby's an older brother.
he is okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're talking Brendan is about 16, so Bobby's probably around 19, 18.
Okay.
He's already out of school.
They never mentioned the other boy. Though.
They don't.
Maybe he's not.
That's why I thought it was
Younger
Bobby
brothers.
too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's
Okay.
younger brothers because
Okay.
Bobby said he woke up at 2:30.
Okay.
If the bus
Okay.
driver's dropping Brendan off with his younger brothers, she said 3:30 to 3:40.
Yep.
And the defense asked her, like, how do you know that timeline? She goes, well, because it's the same as every day.
Same time every
I
day.
dropped them off between 3:30 and 3:40 every day.
I will add, being a former school bus driver, you are on time always to the same places because it just takes the same amount of time for these kids to get off their ass out of this bus and you move on.
Unless something happened,
Which
you would know.
remember.
You
yes.
would remember that.
Something unique
Right.
that would throw you off schedule, you would remember that day and how fucking long it took you.
And you could tell her on the stand, she answered it honestly. She's like, well,
Certainly.
when they asked her, she's like, well, because that's every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was perfectly normal for
No,
her.
there was no deviation in her
No.
thought process
No.
at all to that
And she
situation.
said she saw Teresa taking photographs of the van.
Yeah,
If you remember, I
3:40,
pointed out that
yeah.
2:45 timeline before.
Right.
Remember Bobby Dassey was pointing out this 2:45 bullshit?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a school bus driver between 3:30 and 3:40.
An hour later.
Almost an hour
Hour
off
later.
from this prick's bullshit statement he made.
And here's a professional photographer right here saying it does not take an hour or more to photograph a vehicle, no matter what magazine you're doing it for.
No way.
No.
And he claimed getting up at 2:30, seeing her, leaving at 2:45, and no longer seeing her. Well, she sees her at 3:30 to 3:40.
Right.
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 So
a
even
half-hour
if that
difference.
was accurate,
Yeah.
she's still out photographing a car at 3:30 to 3:40. So that
And
would
he
mean he did
says
it twice.
by 3 p.m., she had already been walking into the trailer,
Yeah.
done taking pictures. And I say, as a professional photographer, it doesn't take that long
No.
to get a few good shots to post a vehicle on Auto Trader or whatever.
And let's just humor that situation.
Mhm.
If that
Bad
took
lighting,
place,
whatever.
if that took place, almost an hour later, she's out of that trailer.
Right.
No harm,
Right.
no foul,
Right.
The
leaving.
timeline doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No, the
At
critical exactly the critical timeline during this case is extreme. It's very. I think, and one of the lawyers pointed that out, that the critical time is an issue.
Yeah.
Something that needs to be reinvestigated.
Buting.
along with
beauty. Yep.
along with my accusation to Bobby Dassey. So here's a timeline for you. You got up at 2:30, 2:45 left to go hunting. At approximately 3:50,
15.
3:50, you met up with this chick somewhere down the road because you called her before and she didn't like your phone calls.
Right.
And you raped this woman and you shot her.
Yeah. Killed her.
That's what I'm going with. Or
And then
your
blamed
little
it on
cop
your
buddy
uncle.
got involved, and both you fuckers did something to this woman, this poor innocent individual.
Yep.
And because you had involvement of this Avery Properties, or not involvement,
Avery family.
access,
Yeah.
you had access to place this stuff here,
Yeah.
to hide this car here, because of the history of Stephen Avery and the police department. Your little police buddy had also somebody to blame.
But he went out hunting with him. I can't imagine that he would not be a part of that.
Right.
Considering how constructed all of this is.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying his little police buddy. These two fuckers are involved with the actual situation that took place, in my opinion.
Right. And why were they passing each other when they were going hunting? Together, was it? One was going hunting with arrows and one was going hunting with a gun.
I say they weren't passing each other.
No.
They were involved together, but
together.
that makes it look like they weren't involved with one another. So that's why it's bullshit.
Yeah, the co-conspiracy of the time.
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the lawyers even said it was what's his name? Stunnock? I can't remember his name right now.
The other cop guy I'm
the
accusing?
lawyers.
Strang.
Oh, okay.
Strang said, no sane lawyer looks forward to framing law enforcement.
Right.
But they did it because they actually believed in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And Buting said it could take one or two people to do this. The risk wouldn't even be a fear factor for them.
No.
They wouldn't even think of that.
Why would they?
Right. Well, they even said who better than a police officer would know how to frame someone.
Right.
And
exactly.
that, in my opinion, that's a pretty accurate statement. That you know well enough how to do it, particularly if you work with a group of people that are going to be involved in some way with the investigation. You know what they're looking for. You know what they're not looking for. You know what's going to convince them to pursue what it is you want.
Yeah. And as much hatred as this the law enforcement county had towards Avery, seemingly, it was just a easy placement. I think a coincidence that happened,
Convenient.
and exactly an accident that happened, and they're like, oh, well, we'll just blame it on him because they want to fucking blame him for something anyway. So
it will be
take
easy
our blame,
to blame him,
and
sure.
those two fucking killers are still out there. Yeah. So yeah,
the ones to save the $36 million lawsuit.
yeah.
Maybe they got paid.
Yep.
Did you have anything else, Jen?
No,
No?
that's all
I'm
my
gonna
notes.
I'm gonna conclude for the rest of the series watching Bobby Dassey and your cop faggot buddy. I'm watching for your shit. I'm serious. I from watching this now through the third time, I am nearly convinced these two ass clowns had some serious involvement of some kind.
The first time I watched it, that's how I felt.
You felt that way?
The first
I knew that
time.
Bobby Dassey, there was something off with him when the first time I watched through it, but now watching it, what is about the third time, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't grasp the first time through, and so you're benefiting from this with like the fourth time you're going through it.
Right.
I tell you, folks, watch this series and watch it more than once. You are going to start picking up stuff that doesn't make sense just from a documentary that they may not have intended to pick up.
Mm-mm. No.
Exactly.
This is my second time watching it, and I'm picking up stuff. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
So we're up through 5 and 6. Do you have anything else to add, Cheryl?
I'm good.
That's good on that.
Yeah.
So our next one we'll focus on 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
And before we conclude, we've got a few more minutes, and we're going to read off some more fantastic
shit to get you out of work.
That's right. Funny excuses for being late by youcanbefunny.com. We have to give you guys the credit because, we searched you, we printed you off, and we got, what is this? 8 fucking pages of excuses, which are just funny as hell. Yeah. I don't know what happened to yours, Cheryl.
I didn't get one.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, you did.
It's the papers we gave you before.
I didn't get one.
Disposed of them, apparently.
Oh my goodness.
I already read all.
You read all yours?
Yeah.
I'll give you my second page.
You know what? No, you don't. I have 3 pages.
Yes.
There we go.
He's looking for a new one.
I'm going to kind of add some stuff onto mine just because I think I'm funny right now.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay, so
Let the audience decide.
yeah, you guys can vote on whatever ones you like. We're more than happy to have you comment to that. That's great. I don't know who went first last time. Did you go first last time?
You did.
Jen? I went first last. I thought I went last because I read like a whole page.
I don't care. Let's
Okay,
just go.
I'll go. Okay, so I'll read off. I don't know, half a dozen or so. So reason to be late. A groundhog bit my bike tire and made it flat. Well, I guess with February coming up, that's kind of suiting, isn't it?
Yay! That'll be Tuesday, right?
Yeah, that's right. Groundhog's Day. I tried a new way into work and it took me 2 hours. You know, it's not impossible to pull that off. My driveway washed away in the rain last night.
Were you in New Orleans in the time of the floods?
Monsoon season down south in the desert, that might work out.
You could use that.
I wasn't late. I just failed to be on time. Okay. Matter of perspective there. I'm going to be late today and every day from here on. I just got a letter saying that I may have won $20 million.
Don't bet that shit if you're doing Publisher Clearinghouse, just saying.
Honestly, that's like a Jerry Seinfeld joke, actually. It was kind of funny. I was too busy sleeping to be on time. Both of you could pull that one.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
A gurney fell out of an ambulance in delayed traffic.
Nice.
All right. Little cannon, or no,
Shock value.
Smokey and the Bandit movie there.
Smokey the Bandit.
Yeah.
Went even older.
I had to show the new work or something. Well, you'd have been there then, you know. I don't know how that one works out.
Don't use that one.
I heard it was going to snow. In Minnesota here, I think we could, say it. It's obvious. Well, you're probably right. It's
in California, you could get away with that.
Okay, because it's rare.
It snows all the fucking time.
August 15th, it's snowing. It's not a big deal.
They're like, whatever, pussy, get in.
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
It's only 37 inches. What the hell's wrong with you?
Right.
All right, I'll do one more here. Oh, shit. With my intoxicated, I'm going to have trouble with this word. My transient. Okay, I have transient amnesia. Amnesia. Okay, I have transient amnesia and couldn't remember my job. That'd have been funny if I could get it right the first time.
It was actually pretty funny that you couldn't.
Okay, don't drink a bottle of port wine on your own, people.
Right.
It's wearing off now, but my fucking brain ain't straight yet. I'm gonna read the rest of this page on the next episode. I'm gonna let one of you two take over on what you've got there.
I'll go. So I put some Miracle Grow on my Chia Pet last night, and this morning, well, have you ever seen the Day of the Tripods? Triflids? I don't know what that is.
Must be some movie or some weird shit.
Yeah. All right. I'm stuck in the blood pressure machine down at the Food Giant.
Okay, that would actually be funny to pull off.
This one cracks me up. My heat was shut off, so I had to stay home to keep my snake warm.
Oh.
I would actually do that.
Yeah.
Like, my python needs my body heat because, there's no way he could go.
Right.
I can see you doing that one.
I would do that one. Do you know how long it takes to give $1 to every Santa you see? What? Eric wants to say something. He's just shaking his head.
I just wouldn't give him shit, so I couldn't use that. Somebody who knew me would know better.
Right.
I can't come to work today because my cat is very lonely and stressed out. If I don't spend some quality time with him, he'll keep peeing on my furniture.
I think I gave you the right page to read.
Yeah.
Did you skip one on purpose?
No.
Okay.
I already have those marked.
That one?
That's already marked.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So my last one for tonight is I won't be able to be at work next week. Me and the missus are trying for a baby, and the doc says next week is our best chance.
Oh, boy.
I'll be fucking all week.
Nice.
That's right. Hey, if you don't have a boss that goes, well done.
Right.
Go ahead. Then you know he's a prick. Or a joyless woman.
Right.
A joyless woman.
I just got a few marked off on this one. This is probably one that I would like to use. Is I'm not late. I just decided to change my hours to make them more convenient.
That's actually good.
Right. The bridge is stuck. The bridge is stuck up and it won't come back down. If I drive around to the boat, I will be another hour. So
those in Duluth, that would actually work.
Right.
Lift Bridge.
Imagine out on Point Park.
Right. Michigan,
you could pull that shit off.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You say it's still stuck. I don't know how long it's gonna be.
Yeah.
You're screwed. You can't get around that damn thing.
Exactly. You want me to go around? Okay, well then I'll be another hour. Yep. My husband retarded our driveway earlier, so I couldn't get my car out until it dried.
24 hours later.
Yeah. My anal glaucoma was acting up. I just didn't see my butt coming in on time.
I was like, anal glaucoma? What the hell is that? I couldn't take a dump. My skin was growing over my ass.
Our medical training kicked in. I was like, what?
Right.
It's not even real. Is that new?
I like that. I want to do a story. I want to do a like fucking college story about anal glaucoma now.
Right. Let's see. I drove to the place I'd rather work by mistake.
Oh, that would just be awesome. I love that one.
I went to the vet shelter. I'm sorry.
Right. I'm sorry.
Went to the bar.
Yeah. The trouble with being punctual is that nobody's there to appreciate it.
Talk about looking at your boss going, you're never fucking here.
Exactly, bitch. You're never in your fucking office, so what the fuck do you care? I didn't have money for gas because all the pawn shops were closed. I was indicted for security fraud this morning.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you still want me to come in though, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'll be there on time and I'll be handling your accounts. So the traffic lights were mistimed on my way in. I think this one I will use because that happens to me on a daily basis.
I go to work and I fucking have to turn on Stinson. So does Eric. That traffic light situation, that could totally be real.
Oh,
on Stinson Boulevard, this street. I'm gonna confess to something that's probably criminal.
Fuck.
I take a left on the street, and the next light is red, but I turn left and I don't even hit the gas. I just coast under this bridge, and it turns green. And matter of fact, let me take that back. It doesn't turn green. I step on the gas about halfway, and when I get there, it turns green. And I'm already at full speed across the intersection. The next light turns green when I hit the crosswalk, and the next light doesn't turn green till I'm turning through it.
Yeah.
I just know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the light where you're turning onto Stinson from like 88.
Oh, I don't go that way. I'm too early in the morning.
Fucking light, that could totally be real.
That one fucks you.
That's what you have to tell your boss.
Oh.
I was on Stinson in 88.
Right.
Yeah, for your boss, that'll be perfect.
Right, because I'm like 7 miles.
They're gonna pause for a second and go, the fuck were you doing over there?
Right, why are you coming from that way? Yeah,
I've had several circumstances where it doesn't turn green.
Exactly.
I've actually had to go to I'd have to like deke out of that lane, go down to the next section, and fucking, oh my god.
Oh, that's bullshit. Just run the fucker.
I hit at least 3 stoplights on the way to work where it's just like, this, really, why are you red when there's no traffic going across you?
Well, let's just be clear. The 3 stoplights you hit are when you get off that freeway. There's 3
Exactly. Those 3 alone. Yes,
and you shouldn't hit them at all. That's my thing, is they're so close together. They should just all be
They should all be timed, and they're not. Oh, God.
They're not.
Yeah. No.
Time just for you.
I've done that, honey. I'll run that fucking light.
Oh, I've done it. Yeah.
In Stinson.
I remember what you're talking about.
If nobody's in front of me,
yeah.
But if somebody's in front of me, I won't do it because they'll fucking T-bone my ass because people are stupid.
Yeah.
Is that all the ones you had there?
There was a one.
No, go ahead, read it.
Your watch must be fast. That was it. But
I like that to blame them.
Right.
Oh, your watch is off. Look at the sun.
Exactly.
I'm on time.
Yes.
It's an hour and 25 minutes fast.
Right.
Yeah, while you're looking at your watch, what are you talking about?
Right.
I got the right time.
Exactly.
It's bullshit.
Yes. Look at the sun.
That's just hilarious. Those were good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are just over an hour and a half, and I think it was time well spent. We kind of pushed through a little bit fast, I think, but I think we got all the points in.
And we've improved our time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And 2 episodes, I trying to get all the points that we're talking about. I think we got some methodology that was much, much better in just having one of us go off notes and just backtracking and whatnot. So I think we'll stick with that next time, and maybe we'll even get a little bit better.
Yeah. Thank you for listening again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leave comments.
Keep listening. Leave comments.
Yeah.
We love it.
Share it.
Yeah,
whatever.
share it. Please share it on your Facebook, on your Twitter. We're more than happy to have you.
If you think
promote
we're
us.
worthy.
Right. Well, I mean, anybody that I even like run into randomly, and I even just mentioned, hey, do you got Netflix? Hey, do you watch the Making a Murderer? Everybody's heard of it. Everybody's listening. So,
yeah, watch that show, but definitely promote In the Real
right
on YouTube.
That's what I'm saying. Is that the more they watch it, the more people are aware of it.
Well, we were kind of thinking on the break that we would include our son in it, but he hasn't watched it.
No.
So
Right.
He's one of the few.
He works like 120 hours a
right.
Very motivated worker.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the few that haven't watched it.
Right. So with that, well, thank you for watching In the Real, and we will see you and talk with you on our next episode. Hopefully this week we'll get through 7 and 8 and talk about that before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.